Hilchas Bechoros Perek Shvi. Mi shehoyole asor tloim, v'hifresh echad me'asor, or hoyole meya, v'hifresh asor lemaisa. The din is ein lemaisa. We're going over to the behemoth and saying this should be meiser. You take a tenth of the behemoth and you make it meiser. That's not meiser. The pasuk says ho asiri yeh kedush. In order it should be kedush, it has to be called asiri. How is it called asiri? If you counted first 9 and this is the 10th, then it's called asiri. If you didn't count 9, it doesn't have a din of an asiri, so therefore it can't be kedush. The kedush doesn't happen by being mafresh echad ma'asor. It only comes by counting. So leketzodeisa koines kol atloim v'kol hagolum ledir. And ve'eselei pesach cotton kadesh liyetzu shnayim kiachad, because if 2 come out at the same time, it could create problems. It could create problems. First of all, it's not clear. There's Tesis and Bechoros that says when 2 come out at the same time, not from the 9th and the 10th, or the 10th and the 11th. So it's not clear if it has a din echod or a din shnayim. That's number 1. Whether the one after that it really should be counted. The first 2 came out together, and then 1 came out afterwards. So it's not so clear whether the one that came afterward is really the 3rd or the 2nd. That's what they says in Bechoros. That's number 1. And also when the 10th and the 11th come out together, or the 9th and the 10th come out together. So it's also issues which become sveikas that the Rambam will speak about in Perek Ches. But I'll call upon an oiselei pesach cotton kadesh liyetzu shnayim kiachad, and the imoiseyan mamid bebachutz, the mothers of these tloim mamid bebachutz behin goyes, and they make noises sheyishmu atloim koilom and v'yetzu min adir likrosam shenamar kela sheyaver tachas hashovet. So we learn now sheyaver miatzmei v'lei sheyitziu biyodei. So you want that the tloim should come out of the deer by themselves, and you shouldn't have to push them out. And therefore, so by the mothers being goyes mbachut, so the tloim naturally will come out towards them. Now, ukshiyetzu min adir zacher zeh, when the tloim start coming out of this deer one after the other, a single file, one at a time, is maskul umein eisem b'shevet. Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Ches, Tes. And by Yetzi Asiri, and the one that comes out the 10th, bein Zocher, bein Nekeva, bein Tom and bein Balmum, is sacred b'sikra, which means he puts out like a red mark, the Eimer Hareze Meiser. And he says Hareze Meiser. He does 2 things. He's sacred b'sikra, and he says Hareze Meiser. So the Seder is that he's Moina b'shevet, and knows each one he touches with the shevet. Says Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Ches, Tes, and then the 10th one, he says he's sacred b'sikra, and he says this is Meiser. Now, Lei Sokra b'sikra, V'lei Mona b'shevet. He didn't Bechlal have them coming out of the deer. He went ahead, and there were 10 animals, and he counted them, 1, 2, 3, and he came to the 10th. Shemot Monam Revutzim Mayemdim is also a Reila Meiser. The Iker is Hail Umonam. He had to count them. It was because, as we said, it has to be the Asiri. Asiri could only be if you counted it, and it became the 10th. Hail Umonam, Asora, the Kiddush Asiri. So then it's a Reila Meiser. So the main thing is to count them. But l'chatchila, the seder is you put them into a deer, and kela sheyaver. Pasuk says kela sheyaver tachas hashavet. So there's a shavat and there's a yaver tachas hashavet, and then the 10th one is sacred b'sikra. Halacha beis. Ein tzarech l'tzaref kol behema shenil de b'shusi l'dirach. If a person has behemoths in various different places, he doesn't have to bring all those animals together and put it into one deer and to be mafresh ma'isa. Ella. Mitzaref kol eder ve'eder levada. He only has to be mitzaref kol eder ve'eder. Now, eder, normally an eder means a herd that's together. But over here we'll see the hemshech is that anything that's within, there's only tez zayin mil between them, so that's considered one eder. So if you have 2 groups of animals, and there's no more than tez zayin mil between them, so that would be called an eder, and then you mitzaref them. Masha'enkin, if you have an Eider, you have a behemoth in one place, and you have a behemoth in a different place, and there's more than Tezayin mil between them, so they're considered 2 separate Adorim, they're considered 2 separate Adorim, and therefore they're not in the starve. You deal with each one separately. Nachama. Ein tzarech l'tzaref kol behemoth shenel de b'shusei l'dir echad, to bring them all to one dir, el mitzaref kol Eider ve'eder levadi, only kol Eider ve'eder you have to mitzaref in a dir. Ahoy le chamishet loim b'Yerushalayim, and b'chamishet loim ba'aku, which is more than tezayin mil apart. So the din is eight starf, and therefore we call them pturim and a because 5 is patim and a You have to have 10 to be chayiv a meiser. And you have 10, but you don't have 10 together. You have 10, 5 in Shalayim, and 5 in Akko. We call them pturim and a The kama yield ben elu laelu v'yit starfun, it should be considered something which you have to put into one deer. Shisha asamil. If there's only shisha asamil, then they are mitzdarf. If it's more than shisha asamil, they're not mitzdarf. Now hoyu shleisha adorim. You have 3 adorim. Ben kol echad ve'echad shisha asamil. Between the first and the middle, the shisha asamil, and between the middle and the third, the shisha asamil. Aber harei shloshta mitzdarf, they are mitzdarf. Ketzad. Hoyu tisha mikan. V'tisha mikan ve'echad be'emtza. So the din is, so they're all 3 considered one Eider, even though the outside one, the 2 outside ones are more than 16 mil apart. But since there's the middle one in between, so they're all considered one Eider. Ketzad hoya tisha mikan, the tisha mikan ve'echad be'emtza, is that ishloshtam nichnasen l'dir li'asaser. Now the tzir over here is that there's 9 and 9 and 1 in the middle. And Teisva says in Bechoros that it's dafka like that. In other words, it has to be that the middle one, together with the outside ones, would be in the starf to 10. For a little marshal, if you have, let's say, you'd have less. You'd have, let's say, no, you'd need the third in order. You would have, let's say, 5 and 1, and then in the middle one you'd have 3, and in the outside one you'd have 2. So then it wouldn't be mitzdarf. Whereas over here the pshat is with each one with the middle one is mitzdarf. There's enough for meiser. So then they're all 3 of them also mitzdarf. Masha'inkin, if in the middle one with the side ones, with each side one, there wouldn't be enough, and you'd need all 3 of them in order you should have 10. So then the taka wouldn't be mitzdarf. That taste. The Ram doesn't say it clearly. But l'chura, that's the tzir of the Ram. The Ram is tisha mikan. So the tisha and the echad is the mitzdarf. That's pasha. So why shouldn't it be mitzdarf? And the other tisha and this echad is also mitzdarf. So that's the chiddush. The chiddush is that they're all 3 mitzdarf. Because the tisha is mitzdarf with this echad, and the other tisha is mitzdarf with this echad. But in a tzir that the tisha and the echad wouldn't be mitzdarf, there would be 8, and then there would be 1, and then there would be in the other one 7. So either one wouldn't be mitzdarf. So then they're not mitzdarf. The taka not mitzdarf. Halacha daled. Ei ma'asin min atzein al aboker, v'lei min aboker al atzein. Aval ma'asin min akvasim aloizim, min oizim al akvasim, shnema v'chol ma'iseh boker v'tzein. So the dogish is tzein. Mashma kol tzein echad. As all tzein have one din. Sheshneim nekroim seh, bareim kimin echad. Legabi this din, they're kimin echad, and they're all nechnasim l'dir to one dir. So, you have 10 that's made up of kvasim and izim, or they're mixed up together. It's not negeh. Halacha hey, ein ma'asin min anilodim b'shona zu, al anilodim b'shona acheres. Kshein shem ma'asin b'zer ha'oretz, min ha'chodesh al ha'yoshin, v'lei min ha'yoshin al ha'chodesh. Namar, ha'yetzi asod ha'shona shona. So that's a pasuk that says by Maisa clearly, that Maisa you only ma'aser mishona zu al shona zu, and not mishona zu al shona acheres. So al there is that we learn out, from a hekesh, that Meiser Behema we have Makish to Meiser Dagan, and therefore over there is also only Mishana Zu al Shana Zu. V'yiroli, says the Rambam, Shem Iser Behema Mishana al Shana is Hareza Meiser. Mipnei Chumras HaKotchim. Because of the Chumras HaKotchim, so over here it's Chal de Meiser, even Mishana al Chaverta. Sharei Likpida Teir al Meiser Behema Befeidish, She is Shana B'Shana. We have a limit to learn it out, but it doesn't say Befeidish that Meiser Behema has to be Shana B'Shana. So on that, the Rambam says that Yirali, that if you didn't, L'chatchila it should be Shana B'Shana, but on the other, in B'diavad, if you were mafresh, Mishana al-Chaverta, it's also Chal, the din of Meiser. If you put them together in one deer, and then you counted them, and it came out, it's a series, so it is a Chalei Shem Meiser. The question is, L'chura Einachnami doesn't say Beferish, but there's a Hekesh. The Hekesh that is Makish Meiser Dogan to Meiser Behema. So why isn't the Hekesh strong enough to be to create this din? I mean, why are you saying that Yiroli, that this Hekesh is not really Chali Ikuva in the same way of Meiser Dogan? So on that, the Gemara says that there's a Kal V'chemer. Kal V'chemer is Madoch, same. The din is that Kvosim and Izim are the Kilayim Zebazah. And nevertheless, you'll be able to be massive from Kvosim and Izim, even though the Kilayim Zebazah. So L'chura, Shana Zu al Shana Chaver, on the other Shana is the Chnat Kilayim Zebazah. So for sure you should be able to be ma'aser from one on the second. The Gemara says such a Kal V'chemer. So Einachnami, the Kal V'chemer is not mafkia from the Hekesh, because Lepel of course if there's a Hekesh that tells us you're not allowed to be ma'aser Mishon al you shouldn't be ma'aser Mishon al Chaver, just like by Meiser Dogan. But the Kal V'chemer, L'chol HaPach is too zuf, that over here, even though you shouldn't lechatchila, but b'diavad it was chal. That's the chiddush he says. On one hand, there's a hekesh. On the other hand, there's a kal v'chemer. So if there would have been a pasuk before, so the kal v'chemer wouldn't have done anything. Mashenkin, since it's only a hekesh, and on the other hand, there's a kal v'chemer, so the kal v'chemer is mafkir that the hekesh should only be al lechatchila dikin and not a b'diavad. Allah chavav. Kol hanilodim be'echad b'tishrei ad esrim v'tisha be'elul mitzdarfen. You want to know what's the year? The year starts with Shchedesh on echad b'tishrei and it finishes chavtes elul. Uma'asin me'elu alelu. Neil do chamisha kloim be'esrim v'tisha be'elul. The chamisha be'echad b'tishrei em mitzdarfen. Now Yoldu tailed is b'tech shnasum. So in other words, a behemah was born, let's say, in Tishrei, and that behemah had a vlad during that year. So then harihi ubita nechnasim l'dir l'sasa. Inside the mother, which was nailed that year, inside the bita, which was also not nailed that year. Halacha zayin. Einat loyim hanilodim k'mei tevel she'osu lechel mimanat sheyasek k'mei shebianu b'mkemi. When you have tevel that's mechuyev in tumas amaisis, so it's also to eat. It's something was chayav bisa b'dei shamayim for tevel. But over here, there's no issur to. It's not the pshat. You can't use these behemoths until you're mafresh meiser. There's a chiyuv to be mafresh meiser, but the value you're allowed to use the behemoths. You're allowed to sell the behemoth. When you sell the behemoth, it's like mafkir from the chiyuv meiser, and also velishchet kol ma sheyirtza at sheyaser. There's a chiyuv to be mafresh meiser, but there's no chiyuv that you're not allowed to use it until you're mafresh meiser. So at sheyaser via meiser kedesh v'yochel kil chasik mishabiyanu. However, even though there's taka be'emes, there's no real special time that you have to be mafresh ma'isa. There's a chiyuv to be mafresh ma'isa. When you're mafresh ma'isa, you become a mitzvah. But lepil, the fact that you aren't mafresh ma'isa from all your behemoths doesn't mean you are over on anything. There's a chiyuv to be mafresh ma'isa. Halacha ches kavu chacham shleish zmanim b'shana l'ma'isa behema, and what's the chiddush? Mishiyagia zman mehem is also lelimkel elishchet achi yaser. So the Chacham instituted that there should be a time when people should be mafresh ma'isa and lepel, even if you were mafresh, even lepel if you were shachet before that, so it's mutter. But lepel lechatchila you shouldn't shech, you shouldn't sell, you should be ma'aser. Ve'elohem ashleish zmanim, b'yem chamisha aser kedem ha'pesach, 15 days before Pesach, b'yem chamisha aser kedem ha'tzeres, 15 days before Shavuos, B'yem chamisha aser kedem rachag, 15 days before Sukkot. V'chol zman me'elu nikra goyren ma'aser behema. That's called the goyren ma'aser behema. That's the time when the Chacham instituted that that's when you should be ma'aser, and at that point in time you shouldn't sell and you shouldn't shecht until you give ma'aser. Nimtzah seimer. So shahagrana shel ma'aser behema is b'yem achrim v'chedesh adar, which is 15 days before Pesach. U'b'yem shleishim v'chamishim esfiras ha'emer, which is 15 days before Shavuos. Because Shavuos doesn't depend on dates, it depends on when the 50th day of Sfiras, so that's where it has to be, Shleishim v'chamishim Sfiras Eimer, and also B'yem Achrim B'chedesh Elul, Chavtas Elul, so then, on the last day of Elul, so then that's 15 days before Sukkot. V'lo mekavo ha'gron is b'yom Melu, so what was the inyan of being kaveh gron is b'yom Melu? Kedei shetiyena ha'behemis mitzuyos le'elu regol. Sha'avu b'yishem muter limker kedem she'yaseh k'mei shebiyanu, the Seder was that people didn't want to sell before they were maser. So the Mela, they'll come to you. People are coming for Yontiv, they want to buy behemoths, and people aren't going to want to sell the behemoths because they weren't mafresh ma'isa yet. So they instituted that it's got the Isser Taka to sell the behemoths, and Mela people will be encouraged. There'll be this is the date that you're supposed to be mafresh ma'isa. Once they're mafresh ma'isa, so first of all, it'll be mutter to sell, mitzad the the Chacham, and also people will know they were already mafresh ma'isa and they'll sell. Halacha tes. Hichnis kolat sein e'aboka l'dir, v'hischel limnes u'lekadosh asiri, ad shenishru b'tei chadir pachas me'asor. So the din is hareze minichon l'geir nacher, v'heim etztarfu le'elu she'yivolda. The fact that they were in the dir, b'lepel, there was no afroshes ma'isa on them. They didn't go out of they didn't go out of the dir, so therefore they're left over and then mitzaref to the next le'elu she'yivolda. V'yisasru akel b'geir nechot, and then they will be nisasru with the geir nechot. V'afal pi shehu yedea she'elu yishor b'minyan. Is chayiv lahaknas akel l'dir v'anisha yishor. The chi of meiser is you should take all your behemoths and be machnas l'dir, even though you know that your behemoth is not divisible by 10. So Mela, there's going to be certain behemoths that are going to be left over. So l'chora there'll be a svara. Just put in the behemoths which are the 10, another divisible by 10. In other words, anything that's over 10, the remainders, there's no point in putting it in because anyways there'll be a remainder. So just put in the ones that won't be a remainder. So we say no. You have to take all your behemoths when you're being mafresh ma'aser. You take all your behemoths and be mafresh ma'aser, and which is be'eder echad, which is obviously within tezayin mil, and v'hanisha yishur, whatever will be left over. And therefore, in the halacha that we had before, in halacha gimel, when you had three groups, you had one in the middle and 9 on each side. So the 9 was mitzaref with the 1, and then you put them all into one eder, and you have 19, even though you know lepel that only 10 are going to come out, and that'll be mafresh ma'aser. Once the other 9 are left, so there's nothing to do. But not, so l'chura, what's the point in taking this 9 and this 9 and this 1? Just take 9 and 1, and you'll have 10. The answer is no. You have to take all 19 and put it into the dir. Since each one of the 9 is the mitzaref to that 1, you put it into the dir, and then you take out 10 goes out, 1 is ma'aser, and then 9 is left over, and that 9 you're mitzaref to those that will be involved acharka.